Hello again. Just wanted to take a few minutes to run through the textbooks that we're going to be using. As I mentioned in the welcome, I've arrived at the 5 that we're going to use based on my experience out in corporate America, the many leadership programs that I work with, leaders of various levels, seem to have just keep confirming the models that we find in these textbooks. And so this is the first semester that I've used all 5. I've used a few of them before in other sections of this class, but just wanted to talk briefly about them and why I think they're important. First of all, the one that you're going to be introduced most quickly was going to be 5 dysfunctions. We're going to get off and run in with this book. And Patrick Lencioni frames up a model that I think you'll agree is very identifiable. You probably haven't thought about his 5 dysfunctions or the 5 phases or steps to building effective teams, groups, organizations, you name it. I find that his approach, his model is universal. And so we'll spend some time working on that, discussing it, and there'll be plenty of times when you'll refer back to this and try to make sense of the other topics that we get into based on these 5 dysfunctions. Next, we're going to get into one that we use a lot and people have a great time with it, and it's incredibly powerful. It's something I was introduced to probably a dozen years ago in my career at International Paper. And it is it's the strengths, and the book that we're using is Strengths-Based Leadership. And as you'll find, there is in the back of it, there's an envelope that you'll slit open, and it's got a code in there for you to go online and take your strengths assessment. Very powerful. When I first did this some years ago, I found it very liberating to understand why certain types of work appealed to me, why there were certain types of effort that I seemed more successful at. And as you'll find in the book, the message is that we don't have to be well-rounded, but we do have to understand our strengths and the strengths of others and bring others around us to make a well-rounded team. Very powerful. And again, it's something that we'll refer to as we go through the semester. Now, because Lencioni's model is foundational, and we have limited time in this semester, we're going to examine the 2 most basic dysfunctions that teams tend to have in detail. And absence of trust, as you're going to find, is the basic, most foundational dysfunctions in teams, groups, organizations, whatever. And so we're going to spend time looking through Covey's book, The Speed of Trust. There are some assessments in here, some individual ones that we'll spend time doing and discussing and really reflecting on our ability to build and hold trust and how important that is. Then we'll get to a book that is new in my practice, but it's one that I found to be incredibly powerful, and it's developing your conflict competence. We tend to think of conflict as a negative, but really when you think about it, we are always in conflict anytime we're trying to solve a problem that involves more than one person. We all have different ideas, perspectives, and what have you. And being able to grab conflict and to leverage it for the value of the organization is incredibly powerful. And although these are all topics that I'm very passionate about, if you came out of this course and were really really had your arms around and were working hard on something, it would be your ability to do something with conflict. Incredibly powerful. And then we'll spend some time with John Maxwell. One of the other things that I do is I'm a certified coach, facilitator, and speaker with the Maxwell organization. And so we're going to deal with John Maxwell and his 360 leader. If you're at all familiar with Maxwell, you know he's published a lot of books. But I've used this for almost 10 years. And the whole concept of 360 leadership and the fact that we can lead from anywhere in an organization, we don't need permission to demonstrate leadership values. And this is the workbook. Please make sure that you look at the list out there. But this workbook is really rich. And we're going to examine a whole series of behaviors that we can apply back to the other books, the other models. And from that, we can develop a very solid course of action, a personalized course of action that's going to make us more effective leaders. So those are the 5 books. As I mentioned, I hope that you can be as excited about them as I am, be interested in your feedback, and get ready to spend some time in some very powerful leadership models.